Hello and welcome to In the District. Today we sit down with Council Member Eric Dinowitz, who represents District 11. If you don't know where that is the Northwest Bronx. He brings us up to date with what's happening in his district and important matters that impact New York citywide. You might also learn a bit more about him, including his work as an educator and his passion for music. I am Javier E. and this program is brought to you from BronxNet's Media and Technology Studios in the South Bronx. Councilmember Dinowitz, welcome.
Javier, thank you so much for having me.
I know you had been in this studio for the opening,
yes.
But this is the first time you see it fully operational. Yeah. What are your thoughts?
Well, I got to visit the classrooms, and just having been a teacher, I can feel even in the empty room, how special the space is and is for our students, how important that is. But I will tell you, I fully expect to be invited back to do one of two things.
Yes.
One is to be in that control room and press all the buttons, or two, you have a green screen. And with the green screen, the possibilities are endless. You have puppets in there. I know you and I were having a little fun singing some Avenue Q before.
We did sing a little bit, actually. That was fantastic.
We're not going to do that on the air.
No.
But we had fun doing that. So this is just really a special place for people all over the Bronx. I'm so thrilled that this is in the Bronx, for the Bronx. And that's why we, in the New York City Council, support your work so much, because of the educational opportunities you provide and the service you provide for Bronxites of all ages.
What's the importance of facilities such as these ones that combine training in media and content creation in a time where there are very few opportunities out there for training and access?
Well, that's just it. We need to work
and
together.
And also platforms to tell our own local stories.
Right. And I mean, you said it very well, that we need to not just create opportunities for jobs to exist, but the pipeline to those jobs to exist as well. And here at BronxNet, you guys are doing that, and that's why we're so proud to support your work.
Now, pivoting into your district, for those people who might not be aware about District 11, what it is, tell us what neighborhoods are in it, population, businesses, what's happening there?
All the best things happening in my district. I represent the neighborhoods of Riverdale, Kingsbridge, Woodlawn, Wakefield, Norwood, Bedford Park, Van Cortlandt Village. It's like the northwest corner, including parts of the northeast Bronx. And you know, I'll tell you just one thing we've been working on relatively recently, a piece of legislation I just passed. We have quality of life concerns just like everyone else in New York City does. And the vehicle through which you make quality of life complaints is 311. It's a great system designed to connect us right with our agencies. But sometimes 311 doesn't work so well. Sometimes the agencies come, they tell you everything's fixed, and it's not. Sometimes they don't come at all, and they close out your complaint. And you know, these were a lot of complaints we were getting in my office. So I said, like, why is that? Shouldn't people be able to say, just like they do on any of their apps, like an Uber ride or their Grubhub order, like, how was your ride? How was your meal? Shouldn't we be able to say the same thing about our city agencies? Shouldn't we be able to hold them accountable? Shouldn't they be more transparent in the services they're providing? So I recently passed a bill that says just that. It says that when a complaint is closed out on 311, you, as the user, as the consumer, have the opportunity to rate the service, to say whether you're satisfied or not, reopen it if necessary, and all of that data is publicly available online on a dashboard. This you can go to ericdinowitz.nyc/311 dashboard to see this dashboard. And this is an incredibly powerful tool for constituents, for community boards, for council members like me to see how effective our agencies are when it comes to responding to 311 complaints.
This is what they call Care 311, and I know it has been implemented, and people can do the ratings online and also on the phone. How is it working so far?
Well, first, we have a package of legislation. It's ericdinowitz.nyc/311. And this particular piece of legislation has been received with 100% positivity, in contrast to some of our city agencies, by the way, 100% satisfaction, because this is what we do in city government, really addressing quality of life needs of our constituents. Now people have a voice, they can make their voice heard, and we can use that data to better the responsiveness of our agencies. There was another bill in the package that I passed, which simply says if you're on hold with 311, you'll get a wait time. You'll know how long you're going to be on hold. It's a very simple solution to a frustration some constituents brought to me. We expect it with our companies. We should expect the same service with our city. There are a few other pieces in that package. I'll just name one of them, and that is duplicate response. Sometimes cases are closed out because it is a request they already received. It's a duplicate, but to the user, they don't know that. It's just closed out. How come it's closed out? No one came by, no one did anything. My legislation says you can't just close it out because it's a duplicate. Can't do that. So we're working on making sure that gets passed so people have that peace of mind to know that their needs are going to be met by our city government.
Continuing along the lines of legislation, tell me about the veterans legislation.
I believe the first bill I ever passed in the city council was veteran related. And I chaired the Veterans Committee, which was a real honor. And one of the things that always came up was veteran families. That we know our veterans, people who serve, who are deployed, serve our country with honor and with dignity, but their families also serve our country. And there's a Veterans Advisory Board in New York City, and what we did with this legislation was expand the number of members of the Veterans Advisory Committee from 11 to 13, and those 2 extra members are family members of veterans. One other piece of legislation that I passed related to veterans was to simply answer a question: who are our veterans? That's a very important question for us to know if we're going to be providing the services to our veterans. So this legislation just says if you're a city agency or you're contracting with a city agency, just ask if they've ever served in the armed forces. That way we can know who they are and we can make sure there are services for them. And I don't use the word veteran. I say, have you ever served in the armed services? Because for federal benefits, for example, veterans, you kind of have to be honorably discharged. That only accounts for 85% of our veterans. The other 15% may not qualify for a lot of the benefits veterans are entitled to. But it's worth remembering that people who are discharged with other than honorable discharge papers didn't necessarily commit crimes. They could have been a member of the LGBTQ community during Don't Ask, Don't Tell. They could have gotten pregnant. They could have been a person of color going back a few decades. These are all things that are real. People were discharged for various reasons other than honorable. And another piece of legislation I passed says, if you served, in the eyes of New York City, you are a veteran. And so that entitles them to all of the services that DVS, the Department of Veteran Services, provides.
Now, you are a first-term council member. I recall I hosted one of the debates at the peak of the pandemic. We had to do it outdoors on the street. And I recall that back then you brought up affordable housing as one of the major issues of the district and actually the entire city. What has happened since, and what are the challenges in that area?
There's affordable housing, I think everyone knows, is a huge challenge for the district. People staying in their homes has been a challenge. One of the things I instituted in my office was partnering with nonprofits like West Bronx Housing. We have them in our office once a month, and the program has been so successful that they're coming in twice a month, in addition to my great staff who do housing work. And the goal is to help keep people in their homes. That is the incredible work they do. That's what we fund through the city council as well. So implementing programs like that, we have NILAG van, the NILAG bus at my office once a month. We're doubling the number of appointments they are providing because it is necessary, but it's also successful. We also have Mitchell-Lama housing. We have a handful of buildings, 2 city-run Mitchell-Lamas in my district, about 45,000 Mitchell-Lama apartments throughout New York City. They, just like everyone else, are facing rising rents and rising maintenance fees. And one of my deep frustrations is that these buildings were designed to be affordable. And what's happening at Tracy Towers in my district, for example, 22% rent increase over 3 years. At Cannon Heights, it was over 40% maintenance increase. And the city has done very little to help them. one of the bills that I authored and passed, it actually passed with 45 co-sponsors unanimously, was a pretty simple idea. It's a pretty simple idea that our government can work efficiently in the service of older adults. When you live in a Mitchell-Lama, you're filling out an income affidavit. You're telling the city your name, how much you make, your social security number. They know your rent. They know where you live. Right. So they get all that information. HPD said to the older adults, well, if you want to freeze your rent, you should fill out the SCREE application. And I said to HPD, well, why don't you fill it out? You have all the information. You should fill it out for our older adults. You should make life as easy as possible for them. They may not know about the program, and even if they do, a lot of my staff members spend time helping older adults fill out this application. It's not as easy as HPD wants it to be. So I passed a piece of legislation which simply says if you live in a city run Mitchell-Lama, and based on your income affidavit, it looks like you apply for SCREE, HPD will fill out the form for you, send it to you. You can sign it, you can fill out any other information necessary. And with this program, more and more older adults will find themselves on SCREE, whether it's due to knowing about the program or due to less confusion with the application.
It is a very ethnically and financially diverse district. How can you be effective in a territory like that?
I mean, think about the things people want. People want fairness. They want good quality of life. They want a city that's responsive to their needs. And so it doesn't matter whether it's on Webster Avenue, Goulden Avenue, or Henrietteson Parkway. We brought Borough Command down all of those blocks to say, look, there are tractor trailers, there's trucks illegally parking here, let's get it cleaned up. Doesn't matter whether it's Webster Avenue or Jerome Avenue, there's illegal car washes, let's get this cleaned up. The heat, whether it's in Riverdale or Kingsbridge, Norwood, Bedford Park, Wakefield, Woodland, it doesn't matter. People have issues with the heating, they have issues with landlords, they have issues with even sometimes co-op boards. We have to make sure people are getting the services. Everyone wants to live in a city that treats them fairly, and we are working to make sure every single one of my constituents has those services.
We will continue our conversation with District Council Member Eric Dinowitz right after the break. Welcome back. We are in the district. We continue our conversation with Council Member Eric Dinowitz from District 11, that is the Northwest Bronx. Now, you worked as a special education public school teacher.
That's right.
So what did you learn in the classroom, and what do you think are some of the issues facing public schools here in the city still to this day?
I not only taught special education in our high schools, two of those schools were in the district. I taught on the John F. Kennedy campus and on the Walton campus. And I get to visit those schools from time to time, and it's really exciting to see some of my old colleagues and just how far the schools have come in providing for the kids. When I first became a teacher, I was really excited. I said, I'm really good at math. Really good at science, really good at a couple other things. I did well in high school. I'll be a really good teacher. And then what I learned really quickly at the ripe old age of 21 years old, which is when I started, that so many of the issues our students face happen outside the four walls of the classroom. And over the years, I saw all sorts of different things. Children would tell me things, so much about their housing situation. I had a student whose father didn't want them to go to school when it was raining too hard. They didn't want the student to get sick because they didn't want the student to have to go to the doctor because they couldn't pay the doctor. That was, unthinkable. And we had students who would go to the lunchroom, look around, take a couple extra sandwiches, take a couple extra milks. They were taking them home to their family because that was the food that they were able to have. We had students leaving school early, high school students, to pick up their younger sibling, sort of putting at risk their ability to graduate because they had to be a surrogate parent to their own sibling. And these are just a few of the issues. And so when I came to the council, I said, it's really important to me that I address, yes, what's inside the classroom, the educational needs of our kids, but all of the things that surround that, all of the things that happen to our children before they enter the classroom and after they leave the classroom. So even right when I got into office, I set up significantly more food distribution sites, and I made it a priority to make sure that our nonprofits had the funding they needed to provide more food for people in the district. But I've certainly tried to address the things I've seen in the classroom. Year after year, I would have students with disabilities, they'd go off to college, they'd work their butts off in high school to graduate, go off to college. They'd come back, say, how you doing? They'd say, oh, it's okay, but I'm having a really tough time because it's college and I don't get accommodations anymore. I don't get the extra time on the test or whatever I needed. And I said, well, of course you can. You have to go to the Office for Students with Disabilities for accommodations. And those students would look at me quizzically, like, what are you talking about? Other students would come back and they'd say, all right, I can get these accommodations, but I need a copy of my old IEP and my old assessments. And so we'd have to scramble to find the physical copy of it and make copies for them. I mean, both of these situations are ridiculous. All kids should have easier transitions into college, especially if you're a kid with a disability. You should make sure you're provided with that pathway. And so what I did was something that's not done anywhere else in the state, and I believe anywhere else in the country. I said something very simple. I said, we in the high schools have IEPs, which is only good for K through 12. We have assessment data for the kids. Schools like CUNY can use the IEP and assessment data as evidence for why a kid needs or is entitled to an accommodation. Why doesn't the DOE, as a system which has a good relationship with colleges, especially CUNY, why doesn't the DOE electronically transmit that IEP and assessment data? And so I authored and passed a bill which says exactly that. With the consent of the student and the parent, a kid's IEP and assessment data can be transmitted to the college of their choice. And what we're hoping to see over the years is more and more of our students with disabilities stay in college and perform better. The work's not done. In our preliminary budget in the New York City Council this year, we are calling for a $2.1 million investment from the city budget into CUNY so they can bolster their disability services, create a more centralized system for students with disabilities, and hire more staff at the colleges. They estimate only about half of students with disabilities are actually getting serviced or are actually identified. So the combination of this budget item and my first-of-its-kind legislation, we're going to see much greater success of our high school students transferring and succeeding in college.
At the City Council, you are chairperson of various committees. What are they, and what is the importance of these committees to getting the work done?
I chair the Higher Education Committee, and CUNY is the greatest engine of civic, social, and economic mobility in our city. It is perhaps the best return on investment.
One of the biggest in the nation, probably, as well.
Yes, in fact, it's true. And it is like the best return on investment we can make. We in the city are a little smarter than our president. He wants to tank the economy. We want to invest in the economy by investing in CUNY. And it's something like $15 for every dollar invested over the years between tax savings, between more income for the people who graduate, between fewer people being on public assistance. I mean, the math just works out really well to make CUNY and programs like ASAP and ACE and CUNY Reconnect programs that we should be investing more money in. So right now we're in budget season, and I and the City Council are advocating for ASAP for all, ASAP wraparound supports for our students to make sure they get the supports they need inside and outside the classroom. Make sure there are advisors so they stay on track to graduate. ACE, which is the same thing, but at the four-year college level. CUNY Reconnect, which finds students who have some college credits as adults, pulls them back in, gives them the opportunity to succeed. I mean, program after program just work, they just make sense. So that's what we're working on right now in the Higher Education Committee.
And you also have the seniors committee.
I serve on the senior committee for food insecurity. I serve on the Committee of Standards and Ethics. I serve on the Civil Service and Labor Committee. I serve on the Education Committee.
Now tell me
about
about
the Housing Committee.
in the housing. Tell me about your legislative priorities now and in the future.
And I'm really proud to have a great friendship and working relationship with Councilmember Riley. He and I responded to a fire where people were being evacuated from their building into PS 103, the nearby school. And it was late at night, and we were looking around asking how we can help, and we learned pretty quickly people didn't have clothes for the next day. They couldn't go back into their apartment, but they didn't have the things they needed for the next day. Luckily, the school had some clothes and supplies. Councilmember Riley and Senator Bailey, who was there, and Borough President Gibson, who was there, as well. Senator Bailey and Councilmember Riley happened to have things in their offices. The school happened to have things. We should not be a city that relies on luck to provide people with the resources they need, especially in a catastrophic event like a fire. And so Councilmember Riley and I have a bill which just says in each community district, the city has to find a space where they can store basic like toiletries and clothes, things people would need to go to school the next day, to go to their job the next day, and to take care of what they need to take care of. Because after a catastrophic event like that, you want to make sure you're focusing on the right things, not where to find socks.
You have been very vocal about anti-Semitism as well. Your thoughts about the situation?
I mean, I would say the numbers speak for themselves, but they don't seem to sometimes. We've seen a significant spike in anti-Semitism. And despite making up a minority of the New York community, the Jewish community are victims of about half of hate crimes in New York City. And we see this across the country. We see it, of course, on college campuses, and it's permutating so many parts of our life. You know, I do constant work with the Department of Education to make sure everything from the resources they are sending out are objective and not filled with hateful language, just like we saw last week. There were harmful materials sent out to teachers, to counselors, you know, addressing those needs, and also making smart investments in education. Early on, before October 7th, before we saw the spike in anti-Semitism, I got an extra over $250,000 for anti-hate initiatives, the goal being investing in nonprofits that do bridge building work, that bring together otherwise disparate communities and have them be together or work on projects together. At the Riverdale Y, in my district, they have We Are the Bronx Fellowship Against Hate, which actually takes people from around the community, around the Bronx, and brings them together to see and appreciate and value each other's differences and the work that they do. It means holding CUNY accountable. There were terrible incidents on some of the CUNY campuses. At Baruch College, Jewish students who were just trying to have a meal at a kosher restaurant were harassed by masked protesters shouting, harmful, hateful, and threatening things. It's actually being investigated by the DA's office. That's happening at CUNY. At the Graduate Center, people broke into the administrative building, costing, according to CUNY, $3 million worth of damage. That's $3 million that could have otherwise gone to our students. And so Judge Lippman, under the directed by Governor Kathy Hochul, released a report which outlines 13 recommendations to CUNY to curb anti-Semitism and hate on its campuses. I held a hearing on that last November. And CUNY is taking some steps in those directions, and we are continuing to work with CUNY to make sure they implement these recommendations, because everyone deserves to feel safe and welcome on our college campuses and everywhere.
In terms of inspirations and motivations, what moves you?
In life?
Yes.
I would say a lot of things. You know, I think the best thing that my friend, she says my smile is different when I'm in a school. Like she can just tell that I'm with students. It was my career for almost 14 years. It should come as no surprise that it's one of my favorite things to be with students. My staff hates it because they have to drag me out of a school because I go into teacher mode, I go into dad mode. I have 2 kids of my own, and that's the other thing that motivates me is, we don't do what we do just to make a better life for our neighbors now. We do what we do to make sure those who come after us have a community that they can live in and be proud of. And I know that I found the world that I live in, I found the community that I have because my parents and my grandparents made a better world for me. And now it's incumbent upon me to do that for the next generation.
In the last few seconds that we have, please tell me about 613 and your passion for music, please.
Oh boy, this was...
We'll close with that.
This is, it's a Jewish a cappella group. I was in a Jewish a cappella group, professional group. We toured the country, the world, the group's still there. I don't get to tour as much anymore because I'm busy in this job. But it is an incredible thing to do music, with your faith and to be in other Jewish communities and to see how excited they get. We visited communities in far-flung places of the country, and to see them get excited and stand up and jump and dance around and get excited about their faith and heritage was just such a great gift, and I continue to be proud of the guys and the music that they create.
Thanks, Councilman, for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
And thanks, everyone, for watching. And remember, you can always watch this program anytime, anywhere on BronxNet.org and also on YouTube. You can also share it with others. Make sure to follow BronxNet on social media to keep informed about who will be our next guest in the district. I am Javier E. Gomez. Until next time.